Joker, Folie, Deux, I still don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is the sequel to the 2019 Joker, once again directed by Todd Phillips, and once again starring Joaquin Phoenix as Arthur Fleck, aka Joker. This movie takes place, I want to say, not long after the events of the first Joker. Arthur Fleck is now in Arkham Asylum. He's awaiting his trial for the murders he committed in the first movie, including Murray Franklin on live television. While in Arkham Asylum, though, he meets another inpatient played by Lady Gaga, who's meant to be this universe's take on Harley Quinn, even though she's never officially referred to as Harley Quinn. She's known as Lee Quinzel or Harleen Quinzel, I don't know. She's completely romantically obsessed with Joker, henceforth the two of them fall in love and slip into this musical world of madness together. I absolutely loved the 2019 Joker. Now I understand that movie's maybe not for everybody. I mean, some people maybe went into it thinking it was going to be The Dark Knight 2.0. Some people thought it was going to be a, new kind of villain origin story in a superhero world. It wasn't really that. It was a psychological thriller that takes a deep, dark look into mental illness, and it makes you feel a certain type of way, and it affects you. Some people found that disturbing, others found it brilliant. I'm among those who found it genius. I mean, Joaquin Phoenix's performance was absolutely spectacular. He won the Oscar for this movie, very rightfully so. I think it's a phenomenal story. I think it's a great origin story for one of the greatest characters ever. Definitely one of the best movies in the last decade, if you ask me. At the time, the movie became the highest grossing R-rated film of all time. It's recently been surpassed by Deadpool and Wolverine, but when a movie makes that much money, a sequel is typically gonna happen. Now, Todd Phillips never intended for Joker to be a franchise, never intended for this movie to get a sequel. Joaquin Phoenix never believed this would get a sequel. It was meant to be just a one and done movie, and when you watch that movie, it feels like that. Doesn't feel like it's setting up a franchise, doesn't really feel like there's much more of a story left to be told. The rest of it just kind of felt like interpretation to the audience based on what would happen next. But as much as movies are an art form, and as much as they are an entertainment, they are also a business. And henceforth, when a movie makes that much money, the studio's just gonna be like, all right, let's send out blank checks to everybody and let's get a sequel going. Let's milk a little more money out of this idea. I will say, I wasn't necessarily against the idea of us getting a Joker sequel when I heard it was happening. But then as some new rumors and new leaks started to come out, that's when I developed some reservations towards the movie. For example, it was said that it was going to be a musical, and then Todd Phillips backtracked that it was going to be a musical, but still, you hear it's a musical, and for me, as someone who's not really a fan of musicals, I wasn't exactly thrilled to hear that. Didn't really feel like it fit in with Joker, didn't really feel like it would really provide anything from an entertainment basis to the movie. And then I saw other trailers, and I saw what the movie was going for, and not that my excitement ever wavered, but I did get some anxiousness towards it. And you know what they say, sometimes when you feel those jitters and you have those fears and you have those worries, well, sometimes it means something. So naturally, I have a lot I want to talk about with this movie, so there's going to be some spoiler-ish things that I bring up, namely towards the end, so I'm just going to say right now, this is going to be a spoiler-filled review. Not as spoiler-filled as my reviews typically go. I mean, I guess we'll just see as I spew along in this thing, but this is going to be a spoiler review, so if you haven't seen Joker, Folie, Deux, and you want to, you've been warned. Starting off with the positives in this movie, okay. First of all, I will say as much. The movie is filmed very well and looks great. One of the things we all appreciate so much, that I appreciated so much with the first Joker, was just the way it looked. You know, how Gotham appeared, how it was shot, how it looked, how it stood out. The colors, like the Joker colors appearing everywhere at the perfect opportune time. I thought that was really good then. It's once again great now. I'm not someone who typically brings up cinematography or set design or the light, the color, and things like that, but when it's apparent and I see it, I'll bring it up, and it's here. And yeah, Joaquin Phoenix, once again, credit to him, he clocks into work, and he gives another great performance. He's once again phenomenal as this character. I don't believe he'll be nominated a second time for the same character, but once again, he gives a phenomenal performance here, and I love seeing that, because you can tell, I'm sure anyway, for him to come back and do this movie, he probably got a pretty fat check from the studio. They could have easily just handed him that. He could have looked at that and been like, oh, wow, that's a lot of zeros. Okay, yeah, I'll come back, I'll phone this in, and then I'm gonna cash this fucker in and have that big spending day for myself. But no, he once again clocks in, he once again makes his character come to life in a way that I don't think anybody else could do that. And I appreciate it, at least this version of the Joker. Getting into some flaws I do have with the Joker in this movie, and I don't necessarily, fault this to Joaquin Phoenix's performance. This is more so where the writing comes into play. Because what I really don't like seeing here is it was pretty much established at the end of Joker, or towards the end of Joker, once he learned the truth about his past and his mom and everything like that, he pretty much finally just died as Arthur Fleck, you could say, and became Joker. He became, this confident, eccentric psychopath from being this shy, timid, mentally ill and depressed guy. Like, that was shed and he became what he is now. I mean, he has that line. It's like, used to think my life was a tragedy. Now it's a comedy. So when you watch this movie and you see him in the beginning when he's not having the makeup on, he's in Arkham Asylum and he's dealing with the guards and the other prisoners and all this shit going on in there, and he seems kind of frail and timid and just anxious about everything and, kind of like, just really just kind of begging for attention, it seems at times. Rather than it feeling like character development, it kind of felt like character regression. And you could make the case that he's going through what criminals feel when they're in, prison and they're reflecting on the crimes that they committed. Or in his case, maybe it feels like, oh, he needs the makeup, he needs the outfit, he needs the freedom to really feel like the Joker. I mean, I understand, this has always been meant to feel like a real life Joker story, so I do understand that they want to make this feel a little more real, a little more, relatable, I guess, to an extent. But at the same time, you're talking about the biggest crime villain possibly in the history of any media. You're talking about the Joker. Once he transitions into the Joker like he does at the end of the first one, that should be who he is for the remainder of his life. So when he reverts back into the guy that we knew from the beginning of Joker, it just didn't feel right to me. It kind of felt like we were just scrapping what happened at the end of Joker. Now, getting into Lady Gaga in this movie, I thought Lady Gaga gave a good performance, and there's no doubt that she and Joaquin Phoenix had chemistry. But again, getting back to the writing, I'm not a fan of what they did with the character of Harley Quinn, or really this version of Harley Quinn. Because like I said, this version of Harley Quinn is not the Harley Quinn that we're used to. For those of you who don't know, although I'm sure most of you do, the origin behind Dr. Harleen Quinzel is she is a psychiatrist sent to evaluate the Joker, understand what made this guy snap, what made this guy crazy. He ends up corrupting her, she falls in love with him, and she becomes crazy. She becomes Harley Quinn. So going into this movie, before I saw a single trailer, I knew the story, that's what I thought the direction was going to be when they brought in Lady Gaga to play Harley Quinn. That's not the case at all here. The trailer kind of revealed that for me, and that's when I started to, be a little, I don't know if I like the direction they're taking Harley Quinn here. And it's confirmed in this movie. She was already in Arkham Asylum. She voluntarily committed herself because she wanted to meet Joker. So this isn't like a Joker corrupted Harley Quinn kind of story. Like, Harley Quinn was already nuts. She was kind of like a crazy stalker fangirl, if you will, and therefore it made it very easily for someone who's very mentally ill, like Arthur Fleck, to be like, yeah, hey, let's hang out, I'll get to know you, let's start a romance together. I mean, frankly, the only real nod they give Harley Quinn towards her comic book self is that, oh, she was a graduate student in psychiatry, so I was like, alright, so that's a little bit of a nod to what she did, but at the same time, I just think that would have been cool. She comes into Arkham Asylum to assess Joker, and then she falls in love with him, gets corrupted, and then they go on this crime spree. They take over Arkham Asylum together. That could have been cool. Tell you what ultimately happens, it's like, you almost feel like she's the one who manipulates and corrupts Joker once again. It's like, she's talking to Arthur Fleck all the time, like, oh, I want to see the real you. She, has him don the makeup, they escape into their fantasies together, and you feel like that's what she's really in love with, and that's when, Arthur Fleck really falls in love with her, and that's where the chemistry between them builds. It just, for me, didn't really feel right. It kind of, again, it goes against this Joker character that was established in the first movie, and it goes against the Harley Quinn characterization that we all know and are used to. Also, yeah, we gotta talk about the musical element in this movie. Okay. The musical element in this movie was severely downplayed by Todd Phillips. He tried letting everybody know, it's like, guys, there are music elements in this movie, but I promise you right now, it's not a musical, it's just a way to tell the story, everything's gonna make sense. Here to tell you right now, this is a straight up fucking musical. And again, as someone who's not a big fan of musicals, the only way you're gonna really win me over with them, you've gotta have great songs, you've gotta have great singing, and it just needs to flow really, really well with the story. For me, it didn't really do much of any of that. Part of me really feels like the only reason it's a musical is because you put, Lady Gaga in your movie, and because Lady Gaga is one of the greatest singers ever, it has to be a musical because she needs to sing. And I'm gonna be honest with you, Lady Gaga's singing in this movie, it's not the best I've ever heard from her. I tell you right now, her singing was a whole lot better in A Star Is Born. I can guarantee you that much right now. Here, there were a couple moments where, I don't know, I heard some scratchiness in her voice. I don't know if it's because, she's trying to channel the character she's playing, but I'm hearing that, I'm just like, this isn't doing great for my ears. Granted, there's also some moments where she really belts it out and you hear the vocals, you're just like, that's Lady Gaga. I mean, there's even one musical sequence with her and Joker that I actually was kind of entertained by. But moments where, the Joker breaks out into a song over something that just occurred, or the two of them break out into a song, or, you see something from their mindset of how they're seeing things and when they start performing and shit like that. I mean, I can kind of understand what the movie's going for. It's it's taking you into their mind, having you see what they're imagining and what they're picturing. But it just didn't really work for me. And more so than that, what really bothered me in this movie is there were some moments, a character was maybe giving a great dialogue or a great scene was going on that was really starting to suck me in. I'm just like, oh, I like where we're going here. And then a character breaks out into a song and I'm just like, okay, you lost me. Music wasn't timed right, the music wasn't very good, and yeah, it just had me scratch my head all the time, why are we doing this? Frankly, there's a point towards the end of the movie where Lady Gaga, or Harley Quinn, I'm just gonna call her Harley Quinn, she goes by Lee or something like that, but I'm calling her Harley Quinn. She starts singing to Arthur Fleck again, and Arthur Fleck says something like, please stop singing, and in my head I'm just like, oh, fucking finally, someone had to say it. So yeah, if you're not a fan of musicals, that's really gonna turn you off. Even if you are a fan of musicals, I don't think you're gonna really walk out of this movie impressed. But yeah, I wanna really get into spoiler detail now over, I want to say, the second half, namely the ending of this movie is what I'm going to talk about, but the second half of this movie onward is where the movie gave me a lot of give, but a lot of take two, because that's where we shift into more of a courtroom drama. In this situation, you see a lot more of the trial of everything that's going on here with Joker. They talk to a lot of people from the previous movie about what happened there. And there are moments where Joker breaks and he decides to represent himself. He fires his own lawyer and he's giving speeches to the crowd and to the jury, and you see the followers of him really start to get hyped up over it. And I'm just like, okay, these are moments I like. I like seeing the Joker be the Joker. And initially, when I first watched it, I enjoyed seeing the characters kind of give their perspective on Arthur Fleck, because the whole point that Arthur Fleck's defense is trying to do is they're trying to tell the jury, it's Arthur Fleck and the Joker are two different people. He was traumatized as a child. He has two different personalities. The Joker's the murderer. Arthur Fleck is innocent. So, when they're talking to characters from the previous movie to gauge who Arthur Fleck is, to understand what he did in the last movie, a lot of it is just recapping what happened in the last Joker movie, and the problem with that is when you do that, you just kind of feel like, okay, we're just revisiting the old movie because, well, that's all you can do here. In some ways, it kind of made me feel relieved that I didn't watch Joker right before I went to go see this movie, which is typically what I do when I'm going to see a sequel, because then I would just be listening to all these characters talk about what happened in the previous movie, and I would just be like, yeah, no fucking shit, Sherlock. I was just there. I saw it. And even still, when they go back and they bring out certain characters, it kind of destroys some fun theories that we all had as fans. For example, Zazie Beetz comes up to the podium. She's the one that Joker had that fantasized romance with in the previous movie, and she talks about how he broke into her house, and at one point she was feared that he was gonna harm her or her daughter, and now we see that he didn't. But that was part of the intrigue of the first Joker. It's when he goes into her apartment, she's like, can you please leave? And he eventually does leave, but we have no idea what happened to her, what happened to her daughter. We don't know. You're left theorizing, did he kill her? Did he just leave quietly? What happened? It's now that's answered for us. It's oh, well, that's cleared up now. Cool, but there goes all that fun. But now I really want to touch on what was probably the best scene of this movie. It's a scene with Gary, the little guy that he worked with, at the whole clown shop. He murdered the guy in front of Gary, and then there was that whole tension in the first movie. It's like, was he gonna let Gary go? Was he gonna kill him? Was he just messing with him? And then, there's a moment he goes to unlock the door for him. It's like, Gary, you're the only one that was nice to me. Kisses him on the head and then just sends him on his way. And there's a moment here that's very engaging, it's riveting, but it also, again, it compromised the movie in it. It's like, again, this movie has so much give and take. Gary's up there. He's giving his testimonial. At this point, Joker is Joker. He's representing himself. He's talking to Gary about what happened, and Gary is just such a broken individual right now. Like, he's talking to Arthur. He's saying, like, look, I know the guy was a bully, but he didn't deserve to be murdered. He didn't deserve to die. He looks at Arthur, and he kind of says to Arthur what Arthur said to him in the last movie. It's like, you were the only one who never made fun of me because of my size, because of what I was. You were the only one who was nice to me, who never made fun of me. And you legitimately traumatized me. He's like, I had to stay at the police station that night because I was afraid for my life. I've been afraid for my life since that event happened. It's like, it's really powerful stuff that he's saying to Arthur Fleck, and Arthur Fleck, Joker, is really feeling it. You can tell visibly that he's getting affected by it. And yeah, it's an emotional moment, sure, and credit to the actor who played Gary for absolutely just selling the shit out of it. I completely bought into that performance, but when you see Joker kind of get broken up and he's all like, no more further questions, I'm done here, that kind of takes me out of it again, because it's just like, you're clearly not the Joker right now, because the Joker wouldn't give a fuck. Because that was the whole point of what makes the Joker the Joker. He's not remorseful at all. He doesn't give a shit. He's insane. He's a psychopath. He just wants to watch the world burn. Gary would say something like that to him and he would just laugh. So again, the movie's showing you more and more of the problem here. It's like, rather than him progressing into the psychopathic killer clown, he's just kind of reverting back into the mentally depressed person that he was in the beginning of the first movie. And then finally we get to the end, and Joker makes his closing remarks to the jury, and he basically says to them, it's like, there is no Joker. I am Arthur Fleck. I take full responsibility for what I did. It was wrong for me to do what I did. It was wrong for me to take on that persona. Nobody out there should, worship my persona. I'm sorry, I'm guilty. And then at that point, like, Harley Quinn, she leaves the trial. Some of his followers leave the trial. And again, I don't like that right now, because, again, the movie was trying for a while to, like, play the whole thing on you. It's like, oh, are Arthur Fleck and Joker the same, or are they two different people? And now, the movie just tries to say right here, it's like, okay, yeah, the Joker doesn't exist. The Joker was never a thing. Like, this Joker two-part movie, this two-movie saga, there is no Joker. It was all just a mask persona to help Arthur feel better. I don't like that. It's like, yeah, that phase where he realized life was a comedy and he didn't give a shit anymore and he took vengeance on the people that treated him like shit. No, yeah, that was all just a phase. He's like, I'm normal now, I'm better. Yeah, sorry everyone. I mean, again, I don't know if you could say it's due to the lead up that happened. Like, the asshole guards at Arkham Asylum just beat the shit out of him horribly. They killed an inmate that he was kind of friends with because he was, rooting for Arthur or whatever, and that's what made him decide, okay, my actions have consequences or something like that. But again, it doesn't make sense. Like, Joker shouldn't have a moral code like that. He doesn't have a code. He doesn't have rules. Like, he should have laughed at Gary's testimony, gone back into Arkham, and he should have fucking killed the guards that had been abusing him the whole time, and, like, started some kind of revolt with, like, the prisoners that are in there. It led to a spectacular prison break or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, speaking of prison break, eventually what happens is there's a big explosion in the courtroom after, the jury, says Arthur's guilty. A few of his followers come in and bring him out of there. You see Harvey Dent's face is now all scarred like Two-Face. Oh yeah, Harvey Dent's in this movie. He represents the state. He's trying to get, Arthur Fleck committed. Does he do much in this movie? No, not at all. I just feel like the movie just needed a lawyer to testify against Arthur for. Yay, put Harvey Dent in there. That works. I did like seeing during that explosion, though, half his face was kind of fucked up, which, it alludes to Two-Face. So I'm like, all right, that was pretty cool. But yeah, two of his followers get him out of there, but, he, doesn't want to be Joker anymore because that's not who he is anymore. So he runs off. He finds, Harley Quinn, but she's all like, well, I'm not in love with you. I'm in love with Joker, and you just abandoned that, so I don't want this anymore, so yeah, fuck off. Then he just goes back to Arkham Asylum, and now we get to the very end of this movie. Yeah, by now, because the internet can't keep a secret, you probably know what happens. There's this inmate that's there, and he doesn't really do anything in this movie up until this point. I mean, there's one point early in the beginning of this movie where he does look at Arthur kind of creepily, and in the back of my head I was thinking, I'm like, that guy's gonna do something. Not entirely sure what it is yet, but he's gonna do something. You know, Arthur Fleck's leaving with one of the guards. He has a visitor, apparently, or something like that. Then the guy stops him really quick, and he's like, "Hey, Fleck, you want to hear a joke?" Starts telling Arthur Fleck a joke, and he's like, "You get what you fucking deserves," and he just stabs him to death. And yeah, then the movie ends with Arthur Fleck bleeding out, lying there on the floor and dying, and you know, this inmate guy's kind of laughing creepily, psychotically a little bit, and then as the camera, as it zooms in on Arthur Fleck dying, in the background, you see this guy's laughing at Arthur Fleck dying. He just takes the knife and he carves his face like this and gives himself the Joker smile. So now you're thinking in your head, I'm just like, oh, is this meant to be like the guy who becomes the Joker that will face Batman as he grows up or something like that? Part of me wondered to myself, I'm like, are they trying to go for like a Heath Ledger's Joker origin story? Like, oh, hey, psyched all of you, this was meant to be a prequel story to Heath Ledger's Joker. That's why he carves his face and gives himself the smile, and that's why he kept changing the story in The Dark Knight to how he got his scars. Like, this is how he really got his scars. I'm gonna guess not, because, you know, Nolan's Batman universe and this Batman universe, if you want to say it's Batman universe, they feel almost too different. So yeah, I'm gonna bet that was not Heath Ledger's Joker. That is just a man who will take up the Joker mantle now that this Arthur Fleck is dead or something like that, or this Joker's dead rather. But again, I don't love that ending because it goes against just the theories that we as fans made for ourselves. Because that's what we all wondered for a while. Like at the end of the Joker, Bruce Wayne's parents were killed, and we knew that's what was going to lead to Bruce Wayne becoming Batman. And you thought to yourself along the way, it's like, okay, is this Batman going to grow up and fight this Arthur Fleck Joker? Or will any of his followers take up the mantle or something like that? Did he leave behind like a lineage of Jokers or something like that? It's like, well, now that's answered for us. Some random psychopath that was in the cell, had nothing to do with this movie, nothing to do with the story whatsoever, just decided to kill this guy because he was insane, and then carve a smile into his face, and like, there you go, there's your new Joker. Doesn't make sense. It feels like a cop-out. It just feels like Todd Phillips like wanted to kill Arthur Fleck at the end so he could be like, yeah, I'm not doing a third one of these. He's fucking dead. There you go. There's your second movie. I'm done. So all in all, Joker Folie Deux, it was just an unnecessary sequel. Joaquin Phoenix, credit to him. He clocks in a great performance once again. I'm glad he came back and brought us that anyway. You know, the camera work, the lighting, the colors, the setting, everything like that, that all looks good. Lady Gaga gave a good performance. Again, I don't like the way the movie characterized Harley Quinn in this movie. I really don't like the way it characterized Joker. The musical element in this movie really did not work for me. It just took me out of the movie. It made me bored. It made me annoyed. It made me wanting to get to something that was not that. There's a lot more scum characters in this movie that you're kind of hoping the Joker does his Joker things too, and he kind of never really does, and it just made you wonder to yourself, it's like, are we sure we're watching the same character from the last movie? Yeah, rather than our favorite character in this franchise developing into more of the Joker, he regressed back into the guy we were hoping he would escape. It's almost like the studio just wanted to smack fans in the face, being like, you shouldn't like the Joker. You shouldn't like this Joker that we created. He's a psychopath. He's a murderer. He's mentally ill. You shouldn't root for this guy. You shouldn't like this guy. And therefore, this movie just became like an apology for, you know, people liking the first movie. I enjoyed some of the courtroom drama elements initially, but as I've thought about them more, it didn't really lead to a whole lot. I mean, it had one really good, compelling scene between a couple characters, I'll give it that. And yeah, as far as the ending goes, I'm just not a fan. I don't like that they chose to take Arthur Fleck into the direction that they took him to ultimately finish this whole thing. And in the end, what's really disappointing is there are elements to a very worthy Joker sequel in this movie, like the courtroom drama aspect, and him falling in love with Harley Quinn, and like, you know, what he's capable of doing with revolutionizing these corrupt, you know, demented, mentally ill criminals, and the following he can create with that. You know, had they left the musical element out entirely and they shifted more into that kind of direction, they probably could have made a very worthy sequel here. One that people would walk out of and be like, hey, I actually enjoyed that. I'm glad that happened. Instead, I walk out of this movie and I'm just like, aside from a couple moments here and there, it's just bad. Yeah, I gotta say it, it's bad. And yeah, seeing by the way the movie's not doing very well at the box office, I'm assuming by word of mouth that people are hearing it's not very good, and also because people who were fans of the first one really did not want a musical. I'm hoping this helps drill the message into people's head. Not everything needs to be a franchise, not everything needs a sequel. Some things are just left the way they are best left the way they are. So yeah, I'm probably just gonna go watch the first Joker again and just pretend that's all we got out of this. So that's all I gotta say, guys. Thank you so much for watching my video, and as always, don't forget to leave a comment, like, subscribe, and I will see you all next time.